right now, as you watch this video, someone is writing your name, not on paper, not on a screen, in a record that has existed since before the universe itself was born. Every word you have spoken today, every thought you chose to act on, every kindness you showed when no one was watching, every cruelty you committed when you thought no one could see, all of it, written down, not by a God who punishes, not by a judge who condemns, but by a being who simply witnesses. His name is Chitragupta. And after today, you will never think about your own actions the same way again. Most people, when they think about death in Hindu tradition, they think about Yama, the god of death, the lord of justice, Dharma Raja. They know about heaven and hell, about karma, about rebirth. But there is one question almost nobody asks. How? How does Yama know what you did? How does he know what you said in the silence of your own mind? How does a cosmic court, responsible for every soul that has ever died, every soul that is dying right now across 84 lakh forms of life in 3 worlds, how does it actually function? The answer has been sitting in the Puranas for thousands of years. The Garuda Purana describes it. The Padma Purana names him. The Bhavishya Purana records his birth. The Rig Veda itself invokes him before sacrifice. And yet, in all the centuries of storytelling, in all the temples and texts and traditions, he remains the most overlooked divine being in all of Hinduism, the man behind the throne of death, the scribe who has never made a single mistake, the witness who has seen every life that has ever been lived. His name, in Sanskrit, means something extraordinary. Chitra, that which is hidden, that which exists in the mind, the concealed image. Gupta, secret, the hidden picture, the secret record. Chitragupta, the god who keeps the account of your soul. To understand Chitragupta, you must first understand the problem he was created to solve. And it is a problem so enormous, so staggering in its scale, that even a god could not handle it alone. Imagine this. Every second somewhere on this earth, a life ends. A fisherman in a river, an elder in their bed, a child before their time. And in that moment their soul begins its journey toward Yamapuri, the city of justice, the realm of the dead, located between the south and the southwest of the cosmos. Now multiply that by every creature that has ever lived. Not just humans, every insect, every animal, every being born into what the Puranas call the 84 lakh yonis, 8.4 million forms of life in which a soul may be reborn. Every single one of those lives, every action taken in every moment, every thought formed in every mind. Who records it? This was the question that broke Yama. The Yama Samhita, preserved in the Ahilya Kamdenu, records what happened. Yama, the great Dharma Raja, the god of righteous law, son of the sun, God Surya, came before Brahma. He came not in anger, not in pride. He came exhausted, overwhelmed, desperate. He said, "O Lord Brahma, how can I alone keep the record of the deeds of all beings born across 84 lakh yonis in the 3 worlds? How can I alone be the witness, the judge, and the administrator of justice for every soul that has ever been born and ever will be born?" Because Yama is not asking for power, he is not asking for glory, he is asking for help. Even a god, even the Lord of Death himself, looked at the weight of the task before him and said, "I cannot do this alone." There is something deeply human about that moment, is there not? That even in the divine realm, even at the highest level of cosmic responsibility, the answer was not one being. The answer was collaboration. The answer was another mind, another hand, another soul. Brahma heard Yama's words, and he understood. What was needed was not more power. What was needed was not more armies or weapons or divine force. What was needed was a witness. Someone with perfect memory, someone beyond bribery, someone beyond fear, someone who could hold the record of every life ever lived, without error, without favoritism, without forgetting a single breath. And so, Brahma did what only the creator of the universe can do. He went into meditation, Not for a day, not for a year. The texts say he meditated for 11,000 years. 11,000 years. The cosmos waited. Yama waited. The dead waited. And in that silence, in the most profound act of divine concentration the universe had ever witnessed, something began to emerge. Inside Brahma's body, in his very kaya, his very flesh, something was forming. It had been there all along, not created from outside, not summoned from another realm, born from within, from Brahma's mind, from his soul, from the deepest core of his creative consciousness. And after those 11,000 years of meditation, Brahma opened his eyes, and standing before him was a man, not a divine being with multiple arms or a cosmic animal form, a man, standing tall, eyes clear and ancient, expression perfectly calm, in one hand a pen, in the other an ink pot, at his waist a sword, the scholar and the warrior, the scribe and the protector, Brahmin wisdom and Kshatriya courage, together in a single being, in a single body, in a single purpose. Brahma looked at this being and spoke the words that would name him for all eternity. Because you have sprung from my body, from my kaya, you shall be called Kayastha. And because you were conceived in my mind, Chitra, and existed in secrecy, Gupta, hidden within me all this time, your name shall be Chitragupta. The hidden picture had been revealed. The secret record had taken human form, and the universe would never be the same. Before we go deeper into the life of Chitragupta, before we understand what he does and why it matters to every one of us personally, we need to understand the world he inhabits. Because the Garuda Purana does not just mention Yama in passing, it describes it in extraordinary, specific, almost architectural detail, and what it describes is not what most people imagine when they think of the afterlife. This is not a vague spirit realm of clouds and mist. This is a city, a functioning, organized, complex city of cosmic justice. The Garuda Purana tells us it lies between the south and the southwest of the cosmos. It is built of diamonds. Its walls are impregnable. Not even the most powerful holy beings or demons can breach them without permission. It is four-sided, with 4 grand gateways, and its ramparts rise to a height that dwarfs any mountain in the living world. Its extent, 1,000 yojanas. A yojana in Vedic measure is roughly 8 to 10 miles. 1,000 yojanas of divine city built for a single purpose, the perfect administration of karma. And within this city, the dwelling of Chitragupta himself, 25 yojanas across, surrounded by shining walls of iron, lit by its own inner light. The Garuda Purana says that inside this dwelling, Chitragupta sits on his throne, and from that throne, he can see the lives of every person who stands before him with perfect clarity. He is not described as angry. He is not described as cruel. He is described as perfectly calm, perfectly accurate, never mistaken. The exact words from the Garuda Purana. He is never mistaken in distinguishing between good and evil deeds, or by whom good or evil deeds have been done. Never mistaken. Think about that for a moment. Every court in human history has made errors. Every judge, every jury, every system of justice ever created by man has failed someone at some point. But this court has never been wrong. Because the record was made at the moment of each action, not remembered, not reconstructed, not interpreted, witnessed and recorded in real time, across every moment of every life, without exception. Now, how does Chitragupta maintain such a record? The Garuda Purana reveals something that most people do not know about the structure of Yamapuri. There are not just 2 beings in that judgment hall. There are witnesses, the Shravanas, the sons of Brahma, wanderers in all 3 worlds, heaven, earth, and the underworld. Their name comes from the Sanskrit root, meaning to hear. They hear everything, they see everything, they travel invisibly among the living, recording what truly happens. Their wives, the Shravanis, perform the same function specifically for women, and the sun god himself, Surya, also serves as a cosmic witness. The ancient texts say that the sun sees all actions performed in daylight. Nothing done under that light escapes his observation. All of this testimony flows to Chitragupta. All of it is organized in his records. And when a soul stands before the court of Yama, the process that follows is extraordinary. Yama already knows what that soul has done. He is omniscient in his domain, but he still asks Chitragupta, why? Because the question is not just about what was done, the question is about the testimony. The record must be read aloud. It must be formally presented. The soul must hear, must confront, not an abstract judgment, but the specific account of their own life. Chitragupta opens the scroll, and the soul's entire life unfolds before them. Every kindness, every cruelty, every moment of courage, every act of cowardice, every prayer whispered in the dark, every lie told in the light. The record does not lie. It cannot be appealed. It cannot be argued with. It cannot be erased. It can only be faced. And based on that record, based on that cosmic accounting prepared by Chitragupta, Yama pronounces the fate of the soul. To Swarga, the heavenly realms, earned by righteous living. To higher lokas, the planes of spiritual elevation, earned by devotion and wisdom. Or to Naraka, the hells of consequence, the painful purification for those who harmed without repentance. And when the soul has served its time, when the karma has been balanced, it returns to be born again, to live again, to give Chitragupta more to write. There's a question here that I want you to sit with. Not a religious question, a personal one. If Chitragupta opened your record right now, not after death, but right now, today, and read it aloud, what would it say? Not the highlights you would choose, all of it. The private moments, the things no one saw, the person you are when no one is watching. That is the record being written right now. Now let us go back to the beginning. Not just the beginning of Chitragupta's story, the beginning of everything. When Brahma first created the universe, he created the four Varnas, the four fundamental categories of human nature and duty. The Brahmins, the scholars and priests, born from Brahma's mouth. The Kshatriyas, the warriors and kings, born from his arms. The Vaishyas, the merchants and farmers, born from his thighs. The Shudras, the laborers and servants, born from his feet. These four he created from parts of himself. But Chitragupta was different. He was the 17th creation. Not from a part, not from a limb or an organ, from everything, from the entire kaya, the complete body of the Creator. This is why the ancient texts say, Chitragupta holds a unique position in the cosmos that no other being shares. He is simultaneously the wisdom of a Brahmin and the discipline of a Kshatriya. He holds both the pen and the sword. He administers justice with compassion and enforces it with authority. He is not above the caste system. He is, in a profound sense, the synthesis of it, the embodiment of all human potential in a single divine being. And there is something else. The Garuda Purana tells us that few people know. Chitragupta is credited with inventing writing, not just cosmic record-keeping, the actual invention of script for human beings. The very act of taking a thought from the mind and fixing it permanently in physical form, that technology, that divine gift, is attributed to Chitragupta. Think about what that means. Every book ever written, every letter ever sent, every law ever recorded, every story ever preserved across generations, every scripture, every Purana, every sacred text, made possible by the being who was born holding a pen. He did not just record karma, he gave humanity the ability to record itself. He gave us the tool to carry our wisdom beyond our own death. In that sense, Chitragupta did not just become the scribe of the afterlife. He became the patron of all scribes, all writers, all record-keepers, all teachers, all those who use words and text to preserve truth across time. This is why the Kayasthas, the community that traces its lineage directly to Chitragupta, have historically been the scribes, administrators, and intellectuals of the Indian subcontinent for thousands of years. Their devotion to literacy, to record-keeping, to just governance. These are not just cultural traits. They are, according to their tradition, inherited from a god. The Rig Veda, among the oldest religious texts in human history, contains an invocation to Chitragupta, not as an afterthought, not in a footnote, as part of the foundational ritual of sacrifice, before offering to the gods, before the sacred fire is lit, before the mantras are spoken. The Rig Veda prescribes an invocation to Chitragupta. Why? Because every act of worship is also an act of record. When you pray, the record notes your prayer. When you make an offering, the record notes your offering. When you perform a sacred duty, the record preserves it. Chitragupta is not just the judge's assistant. He is the guardian of every sincere action. He is the preserver of every good deed. He is the one being in the cosmos who ensures that nothing righteous is ever lost, never forgotten, never wasted. Whatever you do in goodness, even if no human eye ever sees it, is seen, is written, is kept forever. But Chitragupta was not only a divine scribe, he was also a husband, a father, and the story of his family is not just mythology. It is the story of how an entire community of human beings traces its identity, its values, and its purpose directly to a god. After Chitragupta took charge of Yamapuri, Brahma himself facilitated his marriage. The Padma Purana records it this way. Dharma Sharma, a great Brahmin sage, gave his daughter Iravati to Chitragupta in marriage, and the son of Surya, the sun god, gave his daughter Nandini, also called Sudakshina, to Chitragupta as his second wife. Two women, one the daughter of a sage of the earth, the other the granddaughter of the sun. Iravati, whose name echoes the sacred rivers and whose presence represents prosperity and righteousness, bore Chitragupta 8 sons. Nandini, whose connection to the divine solar lineage brought celestial grace and nobility, bore him 4 sons, 12 sons in total. And each of these 12 sons became the ancestor of one of the 12 subdivisions of the Kayastha community, a community that has shaped the governance, literature, administration, and intellectual life of the Indian subcontinent for millennia. The Padma Purana says these 12 sons were invested with the sacred thread and married to the daughters of Vaski, the great serpent king, the lord of Nagas. Brahma himself arranged for each of the 12 to be educated by the greatest gurus of the divine age. Their teachers were among the most revered sages in the Vedic tradition: Mandavya, Gautam, Sriharsh, Harit, Valmiki, Vasishtha. These were not minor figures. Valmiki, the author of the Ramayana itself, was given one of Chitragupta's sons to educate. Vasishtha, the great sage and Brahmin advisor to the Solar dynasty, teacher of Rama himself, taught another. When the education was complete, Chitragupta sent each of his 12 sons in a different direction across the world, not to conquer, not to rule with force, to settle, to build, to uphold Dharma, to keep records, to serve the just governance of human civilization. Their names became the clan names of the Kayasthas: Srivastava, Mathur, Gaur, Nigam, Ashthana, Kulshrestha, Suryadwaja, Bhatnagar, Ambastha, Saxena, Karana, Valmiki. If you carry one of these surnames today, or if you know someone who does, you now know the story of where that name comes from. It comes from a god who held a pen, from a being born from Brahma's complete body, from the divine scribe of the court of the dead. There is something beautiful here, beyond the genealogy. Think about what Chitragupta sends his children out to do. Not to fight wars, not to conquer kingdoms, to be administrators, scribes, keepers of accounts, guardians of records, servants of just governance. In a civilization where warriors often held the highest honor, Chitragupta, a being who carries both the sword and the pen, chose to send his children out with the pen leading the way. The message is ancient and it is still radical. The pen outlasts the sword. The record outlasts the empire. Truth carefully preserved, survives everything that seeks to destroy it. Now we come to a story from the ancient texts that reveals not just who Chitragupta is, but what he can do for a soul that, by all rights, deserves only punishment. This is the story preserved in the Bhavishya Purana, the story of King Sudas of Saurashtra, and it is the most important story in the mythology of Chitragupta, because it is not a story about a saint, it is not a story about a good person who lived a righteous life, it is a story about a monster. King Sudas was, by every measure, a tyrant. He had conquered the known world. His name was spoken with fear, in every court, in every village, in every home from one end of the empire to the other. He did not rule, he dominated. His cruelties were not petty, they were systematic, deliberate, and without remorse. He robbed temples, he broke sacred laws, he oppressed the innocent, he exploited the weak. He made mockery of Dharma at every opportunity. His story might remind you of the great sinners in every tradition, those whose power became a shield against accountability, who mistook the absence of immediate consequence for divine approval. The Puranas do not name Sudas as someone who was secretly troubled by his crimes, secretly suffering, secretly searching for redemption. He was simply a man who had decided that power made him exempt from the rules that governed other souls. He did not believe in karma, or if he did, he had decided that his karma would be managed through conquest, that enough power in this life could overcome the accounting that awaited every soul in the next. He was wrong. The day came when Sudas died, and the soul of the most feared king in the world began its journey to Yamapuri. There were no armies to protect him there, no wealth to buy his way through, no courtiers to speak on his behalf, just the soul and the record. The Puranas describe what happens to a great sinner when they arrive at the court of Yama. The journey itself is terrible. The road to Yamapuri for those who have transgressed is not a peaceful path. The Garuda Purana describes souls bound in nooses, carried by Yama's servants, figures as terrifying as death itself. The sinful arrive already weakened, already experiencing the beginning of their consequences. And then they see Yama. The texts describe him. Huge of body, rod in hand, seated on a buffalo, roaring like a cloud at the time of pralaya, like a mountain of lampblack, terrible with weapons gleaming like lightning, possessing 32 arms extending 3 yojanas, with eyes like wells, with mouth gaping with formidable fangs. This is not a comforting sight, and even this being, even Yama, whose appearance causes sinful souls to cry out in terror, even Yama turns to Chitragupta. Yama already knows, but the law of cosmic justice requires the record to be read aloud. Chitragupta opens the scroll. The life of Sudas unfolded, every atrocity, every broken law, every innocent person harmed, every sacred thing desecrated. The record was exact, it was complete, and it was damning. There should be nothing more to say. A soul that has done what Sudas did, confronted with the full, unredacted record of his life, there is only one possible outcome, according to the logic of karma. But the story is not over, because on that same day before his death, something had happened, something small, something unexpected, something that Chitragupta's record had also captured. King Sudas, on one of his many journeys, had ridden through a forest. He came upon a Brahmin priest performing a puja, and for reasons the king himself could not have explained, perhaps boredom, perhaps a flicker of something older and truer buried beneath decades of cruelty. He stopped. He asked the Brahmin, "What are you doing? Who are you praying to?" The Brahmin looked up. "Today is the second day of the bright fortnight in the month of Kartik," he said. "I am performing a puja to Yama, the god of death, and to Chitragupta, the keeper of all records. On this day, it is said that whoever performs this puja with sincerity can be spared the punishments of hell, whatever their record of deeds may be." Sudas listened. Perhaps he laughed inside. Perhaps some part of him dismissed it. But something made him stay. Something made him watch the Brahmin complete the ceremony. And something
whether it was the proximity to the ritual, or a sudden crack in his armor of arrogance, or simply the first genuine moment of attention he had ever given to anything sacred, made him bow, just once, briefly, without fanfare, without witnesses. A tyrant who had never bowed to anything in his life. Bowed. The Brahmin, moved by this, spoke to Sudas. "O king, nothing in this world is hidden from Chitragupta, he who has the record of all that has been done. Only he could save you." And now, in the court of Yama, the record is read, all of it. The cruelties, the oppressions, the broken laws, and then the single bow, the single moment of reverence, the brief, imperfect, unmistakably sincere act of acknowledgement. Chitragupta had written it all. Every sin, and that one prayer. This is the part of the story that most tellings rush past, but we are not going to rush past it, because this is where the philosophy of Chitragupta becomes something more than mythology. The question is not, should Sudas be punished? Of course he should. The question is, what does justice actually require? The Puranic tradition's answer is not simple. It does not say that a single prayer erases a lifetime of harm. It does not say that the victims of Sudas no longer matter. It does not offer cheap redemption or easy forgiveness. What it says is something more nuanced and more profound. Every sincere act is recorded, without exception, without favoritism, every single one. The same record that captured the king's cruelties also captured the king's one moment of genuine recognition. Chitragupta does not decide which parts of the record count. He reads the whole record, and the cosmic law, the Dharma that Yama enforces, takes all of it into account. Not because sin doesn't matter, but because no soul is only its worst moments, and no soul is only its best moments either. The full truth, the complete account, every shadow and every light. That is what cosmic justice requires. That is what Chitragupta provides. One of the things that distinguishes Chitragupta from almost every other deity in the Hindu tradition is something the texts emphasize again and again. He shows no favoritism, not toward the powerful, not toward the pious, not toward the learned, not toward kings, not toward Brahmins, not toward anyone who has wealth or status or connections or beauty or fame. The Garuda, Purana's description of his court, makes this explicit. Souls from every station in life stand before the same record, receive the same reading, face the same accounting. In a world, both ancient and modern, where justice so often bends toward power, this is a revolutionary idea. The merchant who bribed his way through life, the judge who sold his verdicts, the priest who performed ritual without integrity, the king who used sacred law as a tool of oppression. All of them stand before the same pen, and the pen does not tremble. There is also something here about the nature of what Chitragupta records that is rarely discussed. He does not only record actions. The Garuda Purana is very specific about this. It says that the followers of Yama, and by extension the record kept by Chitragupta, knows the karma born of mind, speech, and body. 3 sources. Not just what you did with your hands, not just what you said with your mouth, what you thought in the privacy of your own mind, the thoughts you chose to dwell in, the intentions behind your actions, the motivations that drove your words. This is a deeply challenging teaching, because it is easy to control your visible behavior in public. Most of us, most of the time, behave reasonably well when others are watching. The test, the real test, is what happens inside. The thought you entertained and then acted on. The fantasy of harm you chose to nurture, the truth you knew but chose to suppress. The kindness you felt but decided was not worth the trouble. Chitragupta records all of it, not to shame us, not to trap us, but because the full truth of a soul is not visible from the outside, and the full truth is what justice requires. This teaching has a name in modern psychology. We call it accountability, but in the Puranic tradition, accountability is not something you opt into.
It is not a practice you adopt when you feel spiritually motivated. It is the fundamental structure of the cosmos. You do not choose whether to be accountable. You choose only how to live with the knowledge that you already are. The account is being kept. The record is being written. Every moment, without pause, without exception. The question is not whether Chitragupta will read your life. The question is what your life will say when he does. Something unusual happens when you study Chitragupta carefully. You begin to notice that in the modern world, across many traditions and many disciplines, people keep arriving at a concept that sounds remarkably similar to what the Puranas describe. In esoteric Western traditions, it is called the Akashic records. The idea that somewhere in the fabric of the cosmos, a complete record of every thought, every word, every action of every being that has ever existed is stored. Not as a metaphor, not as poetry, as a literal cosmic library. Modern physicists, in a completely different context, have proposed ideas about the nature of information in the universe, about how, at a fundamental level, information may be preserved in the universe's structure and never truly destroyed. The quantum mechanical principle, sometimes summarized as, information cannot be destroyed. Not destroyed, not lost, just carried forward. Preserved in the fabric of what is. The Vedic tradition, thousands of years before quantum mechanics, before the Western esoteric tradition, before the digital age that has made us obsessed with data storage and record-keeping, already had a name for this force, already had a face for this function, already had a story for why the universe would need such a being. Chitragupta is not just a character in an old mythology. He is the Vedic articulation of something we are still discovering. The universe keeps count, and there is one more layer here that I find astonishing. In the Markandeya Purana, there is an account that places Chitragupta in the previous cosmic age, the Swarochisha Manvantara, as King Surath, which means that Chitragupta's role in upholding Dharma across cosmic cycles is not a one-time assignment. He is not a being created for this age alone. He is an eternal principle, a being whose function transcends any single creation. As long as karma exists, as long as actions have consequences, as long as the universe runs on cause and effect, Chitragupta has a function. And since karma is not a temporary feature of this cosmos, but one of its fundamental laws, Chitragupta has always existed, in one form or another, under one name or another, the witness, the recorder, the one who ensures that nothing true is ever lost. Every year on the second day of the bright fortnight in the month of Kartik, the day after Diwali, the festival of lights, something happens across India and Nepal and in Kayastha households around the world. The Chitragupta Puja, also called the Dawat Puja, the Kalam Puja, the inkpot worship. It is, on one level, a ceremony of gratitude. Pens and inkpots, or in the modern era, laptops and writing instruments, are placed before the image of Chitragupta. Sacred offerings are made, mantras are chanted. The tradition involves something particularly beautiful. The earning members of the household present an account of their income and expenditure before Chitragupta. An account, a real account of the material resources that have flowed through the family in the past year. Not to beg for more, not as a transaction, but as an act of transparency, as if to say, I am not hiding anything from you. Here is the full truth of what I have used, and what I have needed. I stand before you in honesty. This is the living echo of Chitragupta's teaching across thousands of years. You cannot hide from the record. So why not choose to live in a way that makes the record something you are willing to face? The Chitragupta temple in Khajuraho, one of the only temples in India dedicated solely to him, stands among the famous carved temples of Madhya Pradesh. It dates back over 1,000 years. There is also the Chitragupta Devalayam in Falaknuma, Hyderabad, built in the 18th century, and a significant temple in Ujjain, the sacred city of Shiva, where a rare temple of Brahma sits on the floor above Chitragupta's shrine, as if to honor the relationship between creator and creation in permanent stone. These are places where the tradition has endured,
where people have come for 1,000 years to sit before the God who holds their record, not to beg for mercy, but to ask for the courage to live truthfully.
I want to tell you something before we close. Something that I think is the real teaching hidden in the story of Chitragupta. Most religious traditions frame the idea of divine judgment as something to be feared. A God who watches, a record that condemns, a judgment that punishes. And there is certainly that element in the mythology of Chitragupta. The Garuda, Purana's descriptions of Naraka, the hells, are not gentle reading. Consequences are real. Karma is not a comfortable concept, but here is what I think the deeper teaching is. The existence of Chitragupta, a being who records everything without exception, is not primarily a warning. It is a promise that your good acts are seen. Not just the grand gestures, not just the visible sacrifices, not just the worship performed in public. The kindness you showed to a stranger when it cost you something and no one was watching. The moment you chose truth, when a lie would have been easier and more profitable. The time you held your anger in your hands like fire and deliberately chose, to let it go rather than burn someone else. All of it, written, kept, never lost. The universe, according to Chitragupta's mythology, is a place where nothing sincere is wasted, nothing true is erased. Not by time, not by other people's forgetting, not by the noise of history. The record is kept, and the being who keeps it is not an enemy. He is a witness, the most faithful, most accurate, most incorruptible witness who has ever existed. There is a word in Sanskrit for this kind of witnessing, sakshi, the witness, the observer, the one who sees without judgment but without omission. Chitragupta is the cosmic sakshi, and what the tradition invites us to do, what the puja at Diwali represents, what the invocation in the Rig Veda was always about, is to become our own sakshi, to observe our own lives with the same honesty, the same completeness, the same refusal to look away from the difficult parts, not to torture ourselves with our failures, not to inflate ourselves with our successes, but to see clearly, completely, without flinching, because that is the only basis for genuine change. That is the only foundation for a life whose record, when read aloud in the court of cosmic justice, is something you are willing to hear. Right now, as this video ends, the pen is still moving, the record of your day, your thoughts, your choices, your words, not a threat, a fact, and in that fact, in the simple, ancient, beautiful fact that nothing you do in goodness is ever truly lost, is an invitation to live with a little more intention, to act with a little more honesty, to be, even in the moments when no human eye is watching, the person whose record you would be proud to have read aloud, because somewhere, in a city of diamonds between the south and the southwest of the cosmos, a man with a pen is paying attention. His name is Chitragupta, and he has never, not once in all of eternity, missed a single word. Chitragupta namastubhyam, lekhakshardayakam, kayastha jati masadya, Chitragupta namostute. Salutations to Chitragupta, the giver of letters and writing. Having taken birth in the Kayastha community, salutations to Chitragupta.